a short commercial break, and this is Financial Markets with me, Julius Nsubuga, and my colleague Muriat. And also we had Marcelino coming up earlier on with Trading Dawn, looking at the world of the Forex. And so it is now very much important to note what is happening all across the world, including locally, on what's happening in terms of the stock market. And we have here, we are actually still in Africa, and we're looking at the different stock market indices in each country and trying to just have a general outlook on how each of these stock markets are basically performing on average through their indices. So when you have a look at Uganda, it is showing here that well, there is some bit of it is showing here that stocks are basically up as we speak right now by about 0. Actually, they're basically constant. Nothing much has changed, but of course there are anticipations that it could actually go up anytime soon. And that is it for Uganda. So Uganda has the Uganda All Share Index, thus basically showing us how each of these share prices, each of these stocks are performing and their share prices. And on average, we see that probably even this morning we have 2 major gainers and 1 loser, and the rest are a bit, nothing much is happening on their share prices, no trading going on. But of course, that is what is happening right now. So that is it for Uganda. You have Zambia as well. The Lusaka Stock Exchange or share is also, it's being indicated here that probably, well, nothing much has happened, but of course, there are anticipation that there could be a general increase in the share price on average. And all the other 2 indices, including the LSEEN, is indicating here that probably nothing has happened, and also the Lusaka Stock Exchange, INV, is also indicating nothing. So you have only one indicating that probably there could be something that could come up that could be quite nice and good. If you look at, if you basically look at the other country, Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is another country that probably we've been trying to watch out for quite a long time here, and we should say that well, it's quite interesting. Zimbabwe has more than actually about eight indices right here, and Zimbabwe is one of those really strong stock exchanges in Africa. So it is really a good market to delist your company, because it's kind of a mature market down there. So when you actually have a look at all these indices right here, you can see that all of them are reporting nothing, including the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange All Share. Well, nothing much has been reported since last week on Friday. And probably if you also have a look at the medium cap, it's basically tracking down companies in that category, the medium cap companies. Also nothing much has been reported right there. Also, if you look at an index tracking down small caps, companies with small market capitalizations, you will see here that nothing much also is happening right over there. If you look at the ZSE top 10, top 10 of course means top 10 best public listed companies. Nothing much has been reported as well since last week on Friday, close of Friday. So even here you have top 15 index, same story. Nothing is reported, but of course as of close of last Friday. So we wait and see probably this week to see how some of these stocks are basically performing. However, top 15 also indicating nothing, and also top 25 indicating nothing, and ZSE Industrials also indicating nothing, and ZSE Mining, tracking down mining companies, indicating basically nothing. So you can see here that no information has come in, but it doesn't mean that nothing has happened just right down there. So we have these indices will actually be in position to show some kind of a difference probably later on as the day progresses or as the week progresses, and probably that is some. So data, feeding in the data is quite a very complex process, and it requires, having them live requires a lot of resources to do that. And probably that's why we have some of these indices probably last updated about 2 days ago or 3. Nevertheless, if you actually may have a look at global markets elsewhere. Now this is a very good table right here showing us indices that are global, and this is by Business Insider. This is by Business Insider. So if we basically may go down, or probably if you may even have a look at that map, you see really where the losses are, So that is a map that shows that. So that's by Business Insider. Now here, if we may actually have a look at some of this information, very important global indices. It is important to note that these figures are changing all the time, and they are prone to change most of the time. So even if probably some of them are live, well, anytime as soon as I close here, they could change. So that should be very important to know. And many of us are also trying to basically look at we're trying to answer the questions of how can I invest, which companies can I invest in, and how can I understand the markets more. These global indices give us a very good example, probably a very good insight in how the stock market is performing all across the globe. Now, start with the United States. In the United States, you have the Global Dow. The Global Dow is tracking down international companies, global companies, by the Dow Jones Index. The Dow Jones Index is one of those really prestigious indices, and it's tracking down 30 best performing public listed companies. So when you have a look at the global, say the international companies for this kind of index that are being tracked right here. So you have the Global Dow Index indicating that the share price on average is down by 0.35%, and thus a loss of about 13.6 points. So that is the Global Dow. And the Dow Jones is the original index. Right here it is showing that well, nothing much has changed. Of course, it is changing all the time here, but it is indicating here that there has been an additional 1.05 points as of a few hours ago by the Dow Jones USA. And if you may have a look at the NASDAQ 100, NASDAQ is also a very important stock exchange in the United States, and is tracking down 100 best performing public listed companies listed on the NASDAQ exchange. So this is a very important index as well. So as of close of yesterday, you saw the NASDAQ actually down by 1.92%. And that, when we say down, a share price on average was down by 1.92%. The NASDAQ 100 that is tracking 100 companies, all those 100 companies show that on average, there was a loss of 1.92% on the value of the shares. So when you look at, when you compute that, it's a loss of about 255.19 points. The NASDAQ Composite is also another very important index because it's tracking all companies listed on the exchange, except probably if it's different from the NASDAQ 100, because the NASDAQ 100 is tracking down 100 best performing public listed companies. The NASDAQ Composite is tracking down all the companies listed on the exchange. So that's the bit of the difference there. So now the NASDAQ Composite is basically now indicating that as of close of business, yesterday it was down by 2.04%. And of course, more information is coming in, but some of it is not really so real time per se, but as some markets keep opening a bit later and we have different time zones. Now, if you have a look at the NASDAQ Composite, it's down by, it basically closed yesterday down by 2.04%, and that being an equivalent of losing about 262.59 points. When you have a look at the New York Stock Exchange International 100, this also is indicating here that well, it's tracking down 100 international companies operating in the United States. It's tracking down these 100 companies. Their share price on average was down, closed yesterday with the share prices down by 0.4%, and thus a loss of about 25.05 points. If you have a look at the New York Stock Exchange US 100, is tracking down 100 best performing US companies, while International 100 is tracking down 100 international companies. So right here, the story is quite different. So it gives us a glimpse of the two sides of the coin. So you have the NYSE US 100, which is the New York Stock Exchange US 100 index, tracking down 100 US companies. It's showing that probably by close of yesterday, the share price was up by 0.21%, and thus indicating a 28.18 points added. The other very, very important index is the Russell 2000, which I normally say here that it is tracking down 2,000 companies with the least market caps. So there could be investors who are looking for growth and want to basically explore and probably grow with some of these companies that are listed. So you just never know, something can happen and they have room for growth. So you see here that as of today morning, it's basically showing that the Russell 2000 is indicating that these companies on average, the share price is basically down by 0.75%. And of course, it is also indicating that this is an equivalent of loss of about 14.5 points of the value of those shares. Now, if you also have a look at the S&P 500, one of the other most prestigious indices to look out for, because not only is it prestigious, but of course it's called prestigious because it's very valuable for investors, most especially when they're trying to make investment decisions. And when you term your company an S&P 500, it means that it lies within those categories, the 500 best performing publicly listed companies in the United States. So an S&P 500 company on average, its share price is down by 0.74% as of close of yesterday business. And we can see that probably it had 31.2 loss points on the value of this stock. When you have a look at the S&P Canada, the S&P Canada is indicating here that it closed yesterday with a 1.31% loss, and also that being an equivalent of losing about 281.05 points, so which is quite something as well. Now, if you have a look at other companies all across the globe, if we may actually have a look at now here, you see that Western Europe, before you come to the DAX, you see here that Western Europe has been much affected of late. In the past 2 weeks, the markets have been down, but now they're bouncing back as per yesterday close. Of course, we're going to be having a look at many of these also in the live markets. So it is very important to note that these figures are changing all the time. So it is indeed something to really take seriously, because these are very important figures to note and to get first time. So when you look at Western Germany through the DAX. Now, this is very important to note that as of yesterday, many of these stocks were down, but now today, by close of business yesterday, we see some bit of green here and there, indicating that there was indeed some bouncing back, most especially in Germany. When you start with Germany through the DAX index. The DAX index is indicating here that it closed business yesterday with a 2.21% gain in the value of the stock, and thus a 301 points gain. That was quite impressive over there. If you look at the DIV DAX, Germany as well, it was up by 2.13% and also up by 3.69 points. The MDAX, Germany, was also up by, is also closed business yesterday with upward movement of about 1.89%. And so the Tech DAX, same story. And we can see in Germany, markets were bouncing back. And as of close of business yesterday, we saw that many of them were gaining on average about 2%, which was quite something fairly impressive. So we're going to be looking at this, actually the real time, we're going to be looking at it actually in a few minutes. Let's now have a look at some of these other Western countries like the Netherlands through the AEX index. The AEX index is a very important one. And recall that the first exchange was Amsterdam Stock Exchange, about 600 years old, and now you have other bigger ones came in, and now very much competitive, even more competitive than Amsterdam. You have them, doesn't refute the fact that the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was the first, over 600 years old now. So looking at the CAC 40, the CAC 40 right here, as you can see, is from France, and it's tracking down 40 best performing public listed companies right there in France. It is indicating here that as of close of business yesterday, well, the value of the share was up by 1.75%, and thus an additional 109.69 points added right there. So which was quite something as well, fairly impressive. And if you have a look at the Great Britain, the FTSE 100, tracking down 100 best performing public listed companies in Great Britain, well, you have their share prices on average up by 0.53% as of close of yesterday. Now, if you have a look at many companies, other companies, probably more, there are very huge brands right in the FTSE 100 as well. It's one of the biggest actually all across the world and most active. Well, after the New York Stock Exchange and Hong Kong and probably Shanghai, they are basically competing so tightly. So this 100, these companies here, you will find so many of them, LVMH, those big brands like LVMH. For example, we had the French billionaire, the richest man in Europe, actually at one point in time, even the richest man in the world at the start of the year. It was quite an impressive thing because this time we had a billionaire, the world is richest, not a tech guru of any kind, but just an entrepreneur and a business guy. So that's the LVMH brand is also listed right here in the FTSE 100. And of course, including many others like Unilever, all are listed right here at the FTSE 100. So if you have, they're being tracked by the FTSE 100. If you have Spain as well, Spain right here through the IBEX, the IBEX index, it's indicating right here that the IBEX 35, breaking down 35 best performing public listed companies, is showing here that it closed yesterday with an upward movement as well. So you had the share price up by 0.53%, that giving you 37.83 points added. So you have, I beg your pardon, that was the Great Britain. So the IBEX 35, it shows that probably you had its stock close yesterday with an additional 1.13% value gain, and now also had about, and it indicated about probably some very good percentage, about 20 points up. Now the OMX S30 tracking down 30 best performing public listed companies in Sweden. It's also closed yesterday, showing that probably the value of the stock there was up by 1.24% and thus up by 25.64 points. Switzerland is also another country to keep a close watch on, because it's one of those countries in Europe that have the best living conditions, and also probably that's where the World Economic Forum happens, and so many of us basically relate with that a lot. So you have, by close of yesterday's business, you had the share price up by 1.47% in Switzerland, and thus indicating a 169.54 points added. So that is Switzerland. So the markets there closed while up by 1.47%. If we may have a look at, also at South America through the Bovespa index right here from Brazil, well, nothing much has come from there as of late, according to Business Insider, but of course something could have happened right over there. So we don't have that information here, but of course we can find out what really transpired yesterday as in Brazil. So in Bermuda as well, you can see here that as per the close of yesterday's business, you saw its share price on average, the BSX index, indicating that the stock was up by 1.33% and thus an additional 32.86 points gain. In Kyle as well, yesterday we saw it was quite active as well, and by close of business, stocks were down. The stock was down on average by was down by about 0.6%. So now if you turn to now Africa, the Middle East, you find countries like Egypt through the EGX 30. The EGX 30 right here is tracking down 30 best performing public listed companies in Egypt, and you can see that by close of yesterday, the stock was down by 0.58% on average, although 30 companies, and thus indicating that an upward movement. If you have a look at Pakistan, if you have a look here at Kenya, 20, the NSE 20, the Nairobi Securities Exchange 20, tracking down 20 companies, best performing listed companies, and you have here that probably this was last updated probably a few days ago on Friday, so nothing much has changed, but of course a lot has changed. They're not recorded here, so we'll get that information by tomorrow. We'll have it right here. So if you look at Asia, and the Pacific, if you may go just up a bit, Asia and the Pacific, you can have a look there at the Australia All Ordinaries. It closed, yes, actually this morning it is up by about 0.89%. That's a 66.1 points gain. If you now travel to Hong Kong, you move to Hong Kong, Hang Seng, well, it is indicating here that the share price was actually down by 4.97%, thus 1,022.13 points loss. That's how it closed yesterday. That's the Hang Seng index from Hong Kong. The Kospi index is also a very important one, and as of close of business yesterday, it indicated that the stock was also down by 0.59%, and thus an equivalent of about losing 15.63 points, and that was the Republic of Korea through the Kospi index. If you also have a look at the Nikkei 225, just right over here, the Nikkei 225 is basically very important. It's from Japan, and it's tracking down 225 companies, and it's indicating that probably the stocks actually this morning you have stocks up. The stock is up by 0.15%. The value of the stock is up by 0.15% on average, and also an additional 38.63 points added onto the value of the stock. So if you now move to India through the Sensex index, which is a very important index in India, one of, in fact, the main index. So it is showing here that the that the value of the stock is basically up. It closed yesterday, business, with value of the stock up by 1.69%, and thus 935.72 points gain. That was also quite something as well. Shanghai Composite China. Shanghai Composite China is a very, very important index as well, because it's tracking down all companies listed in Shanghai. So it's tracking down all companies on the exchange of Shanghai. So it was down by 2.6%, indicating a 96.21 points as of close of business yesterday. So we're going to be looking at all this basically after this short commercial break in real time to see where they are right now. I'm going to be just right back.